Welcome to the Empowering Industry Podcast, a production from Empowering Pumps and Equipment as the voice of the pump and related equipment industry. Okay, hey everybody, welcome to episode 81 of the Empowering Industry Podcast. This is coming out November the 15th. I'm your host, Charlie Matthews, with my co-host, Bethany Womack.
We're together again. This is a common occurrence this year, but we're really excited to be here with you, coming to you from Alabama. And thank you for choosing us like we do every week. We love hearing your comments on YouTube and on our social media channels. If you're new here, what we're going to do is we are going to talk to you about something in social media, preview the news from Empowering Pumps and Equipment, and then connect you with an industry interviewer. I'm not used to looking at myself because I normally look at you.
Yes, I know. This is really weird. It always is. We'll get there. We're adjusting. I think that it's fun, though, because my chair is shorter and you're taller than me today. So I guess be the little one today.
I'm tall. I'm in charge. But do us a favor. Leave a rating and review to help other listeners find the show. And every week, we always start out by talking about our weeks, and we had the same week this week, I think. And so why don't you go first?
Well, I'll just say I'm really excited about the shirt that you've got on.
Yes,
right?
I moved my hair so everyone could see it because I'm repping the Empowering brands today.
Yes, I love the icon. I'm loving it more and more just as a standalone because we're just empowering. And so my week was my team came to Tuscaloosa, and so not just Bethany, the whole team, and it was really exciting to talk strategy, to not be the boss of the strategy meeting. That was wonderful. So thank you, Heather, for running that. But just great to have everybody here. So yeah, that was my week.
My highlight from our team meeting is Heather kept telling us we're working on the business, not in the business. And so it's kind of nice to have this permission to
not work on it.
Don't answer your emails right now. Don't do anything on your to-do list. We are focusing on strategy. And I think it's much needed. And you'll hear even more about it later in the podcast.
Right. But how was your week?
Yes.
Other than that, you know.
It was great. We're here. We're excited. It's always nice to have a little break away from home. Mm-hmm. Highly recommend it to everyone.
She is in Alabama, and I'm wondering, how is she doing? Because she's the Aggie fan. If y'all haven't watched that episode, you'll have to go back.
Well, it's great being here after a win. Yes. Let me tell you that. But yeah, so it's really fun to just kind of see everyone before heading into the holidays. I know it's going to be the last time I see a lot of our team in person. Charlie's coming to Texas later in December. I can't get rid of her. She's like, I just love them. We need to hang out. But so I had a really good time. And then we just watched Andrew, her son, play basketball, and I think it's the first middle school basketball game that I've been to since I was in middle school.
And I think you were itching to cheer, right? Like you saw the cheerleaders. Were you itching to cheer?
I was a cheerleader. That probably comes as a shock to no one that has listened to me talk on this podcast. But we've got some moves. We're excited. We're here to move into the podcast, and we'll be cheering next week because it's our 100th episode.
Yes, I'm so excited. So I was a cheerleader too, but not in high school. So she's giving me all the tips and reminding me that we do love to celebrate. So we also like to get social.
Yes. There we go. This is where we're going to talk to you about something you need to know about getting social, whether it's in social media or just in your life, in your company. But first, we want to hang out with you. So Charlie's going to invite you to our meetups.
Yes. So Empowering Brands, November the 16th. That's every third Tuesday, 3 p.m. Central Time.
So tomorrow.
Yeah. So if you haven't registered, just DM me. I'll send it to you. And then Empowering Women is Wednesday, December the 8th. That's every second Wednesday at 11 Central Time. And we will continue to do these. So let us know how you like them by showing up and telling us all about it.
Yep. Pre-register so you can get the emails or send Charlie a message in her DMs and she'll get you the
Only
invite.
This week, though, just because it's tomorrow.
But come, turn your cameras on, say hi. We love to hang out with you and hear what's going on with you. And what else you want to hear us talk about.
So we want to hear from you. So message us or, mention us at Empowering Pumps or using the hashtag Empowering Industry Podcast, which people have been listening to you and Becca. So
more than my mom.
Yes. So last week I will played hooky, I guess, because I had bad planning. But Becca did a great job, and y'all talked about planning and getting ready for the next year. And so Candy Yes, and we will. We think you're amazing. First of all, you are one of our sponsors with Industrial Flow Solutions. So thanks for listening to us, but also mentioning a comment on YouTube about the budget planning and how that's helped you. It makes me happy that Becca and you put that together. And so anyway, thanks, Candy. Really appreciate that.
We do. Okay, now the topic that we're going to cover today for Let's Get Social is all about the top reasons to do team building activities. We just came off our team building activity. We had about a day and a half all together. I feel like we really learned a lot and it was really beneficial for our company. And while it was top of mind, we wanted to share some of the reasons that we like doing it and why we think you should also do it as you're moving into 2022. I pulled a couple of different articles that I'm going to share with you in the show notes. But really, the ultimate goal for team building is that you want to create an environment where your employees feel safe, valued, and also inspired. Because
I hope that's what we did this week.
I feel safe, valued, and inspired, and I think that our team does as well. Because, having a team that have those attitudes and those principles leads to more success, leads to more buy-in, leads to higher profit, a good day. And then, on this ephemeral level, I think in society at large, it makes people better. It makes...
you want to show up for work.
Yes.
And, everybody's just happier when we get along as a team.
Yes.
But you have to be together. So we'll talk about some of that, right?
Yeah.
Can I start?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry,
so we're going to talk about 5 different kind of reasons for these team building events. The first is building trust. And I think that this is so important because you have to be able to be together. You have to be, in the same room, working on and talking about business and activities outside of your everyday, right? It's not the same as talking through a screen or on a project. It's really building that trust about who you are. And it helps people feel safe and they feel open to share. And then if you are safe, right, you've created this trust because you bring everybody together and you're talking about the real side of you, then they're going to be able to share openly and have that psychological safety that we all want from people to share the hard stuff. Because I don't think it was all like, where everything is, roses here this week. But I was like, okay, there's a problem we need to solve. And people, hopefully everyone felt that they were safe, that they trust me and what we're trying to do, and that we can, and each other, they trust each other.
Yeah, I think it's definitely more than even just feeling safe with you, the owner of the company, or your boss, or the leader of the team. It's feeling safe with your peers to be able to say, this way that we're working isn't working. Can we come up with a better solution without fearing like repercussions in some kind of way? And I think being able to be together with people makes that happen.
Yeah, and you can read people's body language, and that's a big part. I think also just like you said, is there something that we're trying to work out? The team's going to be more productive. You're going to be like able to, read that person and see, okay, I just said this. Did this make them a little uncomfortable?
Which is okay.
But let's get through this and let's work and figure out the solution. I think that was, because we have the trust and we had that openness within the room that we were able to create that.
Yeah. And one of the core things that our company has been talking a lot about in 2021 is sustainability and diversity, equity, inclusion, and kind of how those things kind of meet and where the intersection of that is. So we got to have a lot of I think fundamental conversations about DEI and what that looks like for our company. And one of the major benefits of having these team building activities together is that it makes people more accepting. When you're able to spend time with people that have a different worldview than you, that people that have different lived experiences than you, it gives you the opportunity to understand where they're coming from and hear different points of view and take it in and have the time to process it and accept it. And I just think like having the opportunity with our team who even, we're different. We're different people. We've had a lot of different experiences. And so that makes us more accepting of the people on our team, which then also teaches us to be more accepting of people who are different than us outside our team, which I think can only lead to more success.
Yeah. And I think once you figure out a way that, okay, that's what makes them function properly, right? Like this is the thing that helps them be productive, then you want to have that environment for them. You want to be and figure out a way for they can be themselves and work. So that was really rewarding. Big picture is company culture and the direction of the company. And I think that, at our core, and I told y'all this, I mean, we wanted to be professional and fun at the beginning. Like when I created the company, we still want that.
Like a mullet. Party in the front. Wait, no, business in the front, party in the back.
Right. But anyway, we come together and we talk about this company culture and what does it mean to us? What is our core values? That was really exciting with our team going through that. Do you agree? Does everybody agree that, this is one of them, or should we add another one?
And it had been, like 5 years or so since we had like really examined those and made sure that there was buy-in to all of that. And so I think like doing that at some point and being able to do it all together.
Yeah. And because I think that there's the conversations that were had early on that tied into, okay, what does this core value really mean to us? Not just, integrity, right? It has different meanings for everyone. But for us, we want to do what we say we're going to do. And that's really important to us. So safety, fun is definitely part of the company culture that I want to have. It should align, hopefully. You're having fun in your job and feeling safe as well.
Yeah, and I think the big picture to that and to this, or the next tip, improved engagement and morale, is that when people are engaged and they feel invested in the people that they're working with, I'm more likely to put out more effort, because it's not just about getting to 5 o'clock or finishing this project or whatever. It's also about supporting the people I work with. And so doing these team activities, it improves the engagement where people are interacting with each other. It improves morale. It gives us something to look forward to doing. It fosters teamwork and innovation. And then, like I said at the beginning, we were talking about this, giving us the opportunity to strategize and think outside of the business instead of in the business. I'm just going to live in that phrase.
Yes, and I love that phrase.
Someday I'm not going to be doing my work. I'm going to be like, Charlie, I'm working on the business right now. I'm not. Right. Today is not an in the business day.
Hey, I'm for it. I'm for it. Anytime I can have some help on the business, I welcome that. But that's part of it. So unlocking leadership, right? We talked about that leadership potential is where we want to go, and that's normally comes out in this relaxed environment. And when you open up and talk about different things and what makes you tick, that's what makes a leader tick too, right? It's figuring out what each person on your team is most productive and efficient at, right? And what they thrive in. And so I really like bringing my team together and watching. And so again, that's why I mentioned that about Heather, is because I can see the interaction between the team, which is amazing. And then I get surprised. Some people, will just open up and have a comment on something. And you're like, wow, where did that come from? We played the leadership game, which is a John Maxwell game several years ago, I think 4 now. I got that game and I just loved it because you sit around and yes, it has some work questions about leadership, but it also has just like, what's your top 5 amazing things about yourself? And you can kind of see like who can just write those down real easily, and then who does it, struggle with that. And maybe you figure out a way to help them along and really see their value and who they are in their company. So I love playing the leadership game. And I recognize leadership skills in people every time we do that.
And just a plug for Charlie, for everyone listening to this, Charlie has done a lot of leadership work in 2021 to hone your leadership skills, learn how to harness your power, and we have big plans to share that with people in the coming year. And so if you have any questions about leadership, or you're hearing us talk about our team building event and you're like, that sounds so fun, reach out to Charlie. She would love to talk to you about it for a long time. If you want her on a podcast to talk about leadership, you're going to have to kick her off and give her a time limit because she will stay all day.
I can definitely talk about leadership forever. So I think that's where we are. Anything else that we want to talk about?
I thank you for organizing this team event. I think we settled on trying, to get together once a year is kind of where the sweet spot is for our company. But having that touch point, I highly recommend it if you're a leader to push for that for your team. I know that right now it's hard. It's the holidays. We're still in a lot of uncertainty with COVID, but I think finding a place where you're comfortable with that works for your team. It's really important to have these days where you can bond over something other than a widget or a task or any of those things.
Absolutely. And it's important. You'll feel like you can't take the time, but if you do, you'll be more effective and efficient because you're all on the same page working towards the same goals. And I am really excited about our goals for 2022. Yes. So watch out for that. And, let us know what you'd like to see always. Okay. I think that's it.
Into the news. this is where we're going to preview the news coming out on empowering pumps and equipment this week. You can get those emails directly to your inbox twice a week. If you're not subscribed, definitely do that. So you can see all of the great stories coming out from our partners and interesting things that you need to know for the industry.
And we're going to not have a new person of the week, because get ready for the announcement of industry person of the year, which I like to do. We give away prizes and everybody gets to vote, and that's really fun. And so we are still taking nominations for 2022. We don't have to stop. You don't have to push pause and remember to come back. You can go ahead and nominate somebody now, and we'll hold on to it for you. So check out how to nominate somebody. If you don't know, we will put that in the show notes.
And it's super easy. You literally put their name and their email and reach out to them and get their information. And it's a easy, quick, free way for you to highlight someone who needs some recognition in the industry.
Yes. And it's one of our favorite things to celebrate all of you. And so if you're thinking, man, I'd like a recognition, then just, again, tell me who your friends are and I'll reach out to them. It's fine.
Yes. Okay. So the news story that I'm previewing for you this week comes to us from Netch. It's eco-friendly manufacturing process. Such a cool story that I was telling Charlie about it in the car on the way to the basketball game. But basically, it's a case study that comes to us from Wasatch Resource Recovery in Salt Lake City, Utah. They are using pumps to turn local plant food waste into renewable energy.
I think this is amazing. I mean, all I think about is Back to the Future, and when they use the banana and put it into the car and they made the energy. It was amazing. So I think that this is,
it's
futuristic
amazing
stuff, right?
I didn't know. It was something completely new that I learned that was a possibility. It is helping reduce our carbon footprint by using energy that we've already created and that we were just going to send to a landfill. So it's taking these pre-consumer foods, food and beverage waste, and converts it into renewable energy in the form of natural gas, into fertilizers. So we're talking places from breweries, grocery stores, restaurants, food processing plants, schools, caterers, anywhere where you're going to see mass food production. And the food waste could include scraps or liquid waste or manufacturing food waste, including prepared food, fruit, vegetables, meat and dairy, fats, oils, grease, and other liquids.
We're here. We're in the future, and this amazing,
cool.
amazing technology. And thank you, Nedge, for bringing this to us. The case study is on the website, of course, but it's just really fun to think that we can be more sustainable by the things that we're already doing and creating waste and then turning that into energy.
And so the news story talks about how progressing cavity pumps are used as a solution when they're doing this process. It's a really interesting case study. I highly recommend reading it and then, telling all of your friends about this new cool Back to the Future technology that we just learned about.
Absolutely. Okay, so my news item is ABB Smart Infrastructure Solutions for District Energy and Tunnels, a virtual conference. Interactive Expo. Okay, we've seen a lot of these. So I'm excited about seeing that from ABB. That's going to be November the 23rd. It's 8 a.m. To 5 p.m. So a pretty lengthy, awesome expo there.
Be plugged in, learn a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of, updating us on the new ways to make pumping, drainage, ventilation systems that you design. If you're listening to this and you design those systems, that they can work and operate more efficiently. So cost effective, we love that. And also ensuring safety. Mm-hmm. 2 tracks will happen, the district energy, so pumping and energy production, and then also tunnels, so ventilation and drainage. You'll be able to chat with the speakers, navigate interactive showrooms, and explore this virtual applications and portfolios. I just think, this is going to be a wealth of knowledge in this new area that we like to talk about, and can't wait to hear all about this smart infrastructure solutions.
ABB does an awesome job bringing these events and knowledge shares and just information to the industry. And so we're happy to share this event. We hope you get a lot out of it if you attend. Let us know if you have any questions about it. Drop a comment on our social channels and we'll tag ABB to get you an answer on that. But now we're going to move into our industry interview. Charlie, you want to introduce our guest today?
Yes, Lindsay Schultz. I am so excited to be able to, share her with you. She is a mining recruiter, and I love how she kind of tells her story, and kind of it's an untraditional and a traditional story at the same time. So she didn't choose mining.
Mining chose her.
Yes. Have you heard that before, right? No. But she was a daughter of the company MRC with Robert Schultz, her father, obviously. And then she says that she was part of that business ever since she was able to kind of pull a fax, if y'all listening that don't know what a fax machine is, but pull off resumes from the fax machine. And so she's been juggling school trips, with her dad and learning every aspect of the business alongside her. And I kind of think about Carly in this regard, like learning from us.
Yeah.
But she's super talented. She has a bachelor's degree in human resources, organizational behavior from the University of New Mexico.
We should have had her on this part too to talk to us about team building as well. She might have could have added some more to the conversation.
Yeah, and I think part of her presentation or interview that we had was just every aspect of the business and how you want to bring in talent, what you want to do for them. So I think you'll really enjoy that interview.
I am so excited. Without further delay, here's your interview.
Hey, Lindsay. Welcome to the Empowering Industry Podcast. I'm so happy to have a conversation with you today. I've been, just fascinated with you online, and now to be able to meet you here via the podcast is just so great. So normally, I can go on and on about what I think about you, but let's start with you. Just kind of who you are, what's your story, what are you doing now?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me on this. I was really pleased to have the opportunity and did some homework, and I'm really looking forward to joining you at your virtual Empowering Women program here coming up in October. I'm sad that I'll miss the other one for another conference, but thank you for chatting with me today and having me to kind of answer your question. I do executive recruiting or recruiting. I think we tag executive on there often, but really I work from entry level all the way to board, focused on the mining industry. So that could be exploration, could be startup, mid-tier majors, along with mining supply companies. And so my dad started our company in 1984. In some way, I've always sort of been part of the organization. And so from pulling resumes off the fax machine or out of the mail way back when to now, sort of leading the charge a little bit. And it's been a really fun journey, and I've learned a ton from the individuals that I've gotten to work with. But really, truly, I love the industry. And I love my job in terms of helping people find and secure new opportunities and helping companies build teams.
Yeah, I think I read that, and that's what kind of got my attention is, kind of starting this company, I'm a startup too. I was 10 years old. I don't think I can say that anymore, but, going through that and knowing, okay, now you're in it, your family owned company, now you're in it. Now, how do you kind of stand out as your own person in that industry? And so I was super curious to find that out, but with mining and in that recruiting into that industry, what do you look for?
It's interesting. I've worked in mining now longer than I worked in any other industry. So when I first started this, I focused on HR recruiting across industry because we had another search firm that focused primarily on that. And so I worked in high tech and all kinds of really interesting areas, security, government, it didn't matter, but only with HR people. And my background, my bachelor's degree is in human resources and organizational development. So I sort of understood that. But every time I hired an HR person, they'd call me back like 6 months later and hate their job. And it was really not very fulfilling for me. And so we had the other side of the company that focused really on mining search. My dad said, well, it's really booming. Why don't you come over and sort of help me with that? And so I had always been sort of involved, like I said, and went to dinners or went on trips with my dad growing up and learned about it in that fashion and had the opportunity to be introduced to so many really interesting mining, powerful, interesting people that worked all over the world and told great stories. And so I kind of used that as my entry point, and I loved it. And they all loved their jobs. They loved traveling and everything that they got to do. And so I always say, you kind of get bit by the mining bug. And when the industry is down, you sort of withstand. And, we always slough people off in these downturns, but perseverance is a major character trait, I think, of those who are in our industry. And so I always look for that, I think. And so people who can get excited about what they do, whether it's clients, candidates, people that I get to work with, just perseverance and excitement about anything that they're doing.
Yeah, I love that about the mining industry and just our trades people in general. They have such amazing stories and things that, you don't realize that this is essential for our everyday lives, that they're out there in the field working for us. So I'm sure those stories are awesome. But, growing up in that and kind of meeting people, I would assume that, building that trust is really important for your job and kind of being out there and in it. But I guess how do you do that? How do you gain their trust?
Building trust, I think, is one of the most critical things of what I do, both on my client side as well as the candidate side. And I always say that, in mining, it's so tight that if you do a good job with a candidate, ultimately you hope that they'll become a client. And often companies turn over or they're sold, and so a client can then turn into a candidate really quickly. So gaining trust is almost the same for both sets. But to me, it's listening. That's the first thing. Sort of understanding their story, figuring out what's going on. But you have two ears and one mouth, right?
That's right.
And
That's right.
so I am a talker and a helper sort of by nature, but I think the first part is listening. And then truly, authenticity would be the second portion of what I think is most important in terms of establishing trust, both on both sides, which moves into integrity and being able to have open communication. And I think that in recruiting, regardless of which side I have to talk to, it should be a personal scenario. So figuring out how someone is characterizing a need within their organization should be personal. They're talking about people, not just a skill set, ideally. And we see that on, both a little bit, but we ask for the wish list and then we ask for sort of the more intangible side. What do you want in this person? What fits well with your team? And so having those conversations, I think, helps to establish that trust on both sides, because I also have to be able to trust candidates and clients to a degree. And so listening for me is number one.
Yeah. And I think, they have to be able to trust you because they are opening up and sharing what's really going on with you. Right. So you have to give off that ability to be trusted, which is just such a challenge for, getting to know somebody just random, like new, right? Like brand new. Okay. How do you establish this trust immediately? But I did that with you and I feel like I trust you too. So you just have that in your nature, I guess.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the compliment. And I feel the same way about you. I think sometimes I think the more people you talk to, the faster you can sort of assess this. And so being in what we do, I think we get to talk to a lot of people. And so feeling that receptiveness and openness and being able to kind of match that and guide the communication or the conversation is part of that trust building as well. And I think it's a skill that you don't realize you're developing, but you do over time a little bit.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was doing the Twitter chat just the other day, and that was one of the questions about trust. And I said, well, I normally give a little, information about myself and see if they reciprocate. And if they do, then I feel like I can trust them.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's a great way. Tell a little story or an anecdote and see if somebody sort of matches that. And that's a really, it's sort of one of the things that I use and forget about.
That's right. It just comes natural now. Yeah. Well, I'm curious. I'm gonna pick your brain in a different way now because you are talking to all these people in the mining industry, and I'm just curious what is changing there. How's the landscape over there?
There's so many different ways to answer that question, and I think just in terms of an industry. Holistically, I think we've seen more discussion about responsible mining practices and what does that really mean? I think that we could go into so many areas. So it could be safety, it could be decarbonization, it could be utilizing technology, all kinds of stuff there. But I'm just going to call it smart mining.
Yes.
And I like that term a lot, but I think that that's probably at the forefront right now. And there's been more conversation and more happening around that, which I think is really encouraging. And then beyond that, we could go into technology and automation and all kinds of stuff that's making it smarter, and making it really a cool place to work within for so many people that are coming into our industry. And then I think third, I'm just going to touch on people. I think that the acknowledgement that people are key to operational success, whether you're on a supply side or a mining side, people are so important, because without them, you're not going to pull anything out of the ground. You're not going to get anything done. So valuing them is paramount.
Yeah, completely agree with you again. And so, with that, and you're out there, talking to the people, and they're trying to implement these things, these new processes, or it's probably feeling a lot like change, even though the process may be just updated a little bit. But this overall change in mining, I mean, even for me, understanding the process and the things that we're going after, what we're mining, and how they're going to be used in technologies that, I had a fun person on here, HJ, talking about electric vehicles. And, you've got to have some mining involved to get the materials that you need to make all this stuff work. And so I just see that makes mining even more of a conversation about how essential it is and how vital to our lives that process of mining is. And you can't do that without the people. So, I'm curious, because there are parts of mining that are scary and dirty, like that's part of it. And so once you find somebody in the mining industry, trying to figure out how to retain them, who do you need? What are the people, that we're looking for within the mining industry right now?
So, I think mining generally is quite supply challenged, and we always attribute that to sort of the cyclical, I can't talk today, the cyclical nature of our industry, and it goes up and it goes down, and each time we chase some people away because they need to find jobs, and there aren't always them. I think right now, I've talked to a lot of people more recently, and everybody sort of shares the sentiment that between infrastructure and everything growing out there, also electric vehicles and batteries and cell phones and all of the technology that we're using that requires things from mining, that maybe we'll have a longer cycle, and one that can be created a bit more sustainably, I guess. And so I think we need people in every area within mining. There are more supply challenged areas, and I always kind of look at this, and I think that my perspective is a bit colored because it happens to be what I'm sort of having difficulties searching for clients, but that changes as my searches do. So, the one area I will say I find to be one of the more supply challenged areas is anybody coming into process controls, sort of automation, technology, and in running all of these really interesting new technologies that we're implementing for automation and things like that. So there just aren't enough to go around, and they're coming from outside of mining, and I think that that's great. We've not always been a group that's very receptive to outsiders, and we're going to have to be.
Yeah, which reminds me of my question I have to ask you about kind of women in mining. I see that category or event or different group, but are you actually seeing women out there in our mining industry? And I guess that's my first question.
Sure. So mining, women represent roughly 14% of the mining workforce. That's pretty low.
Right.
It's the second lowest, in terms of having women in the industry. So the only industry that's lower than that is construction. And so that's really not super surprising. I think that traditionally mining has been a difficult industry for women to stay in because we have a lot of field components. In geology, we're asking them to go into the field and for several weeks at a time, anywhere in the world. And we haven't always been very good about being accommodating to families and other lifestyles. And minds don't crop up in the middle of cities all the time, right? And so often, in previous scenarios and even early when I was a kid, husband would have a job, wife would follow. Maybe she was a teacher, maybe she was a nurse, maybe she could find employment, maybe it wasn't important. She was a stay at home mom. We have more dual income families now. And
Yes.
so our ability to provide a scenario where women can be involved and be working within mining is and should be one of our main concerns, right? So to keep them in the industry, we have to be creative, figure out how do we have a rotational schedule for geologists in the field so that they can also have kids in school.
Yeah, I thought that was a great point
gone.
that we talked about kind of previous to this, and you pointed it out. Okay, there's a mine, and where is the school anywhere near that, right? And so childcare is a problem, schooling is a problem
Yeah.
that we need to solve, and so
Yeah.
that we can retain, so we can bring people in and keep them.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
attract and retain components are addressed in that. And I don't have the answer for everybody, and not all companies are going to be receptive to that. I think that some are a bit more forward thinking and recognizing that there's a need for this, or they can toss some money at childcare and some kind of creative compensation program that they have. But it's going to continue to be a major factor in attraction and retention for women in our industry. And so I think being creative and having women in mining or other groups like yours having this open discussion and brainstorming around it can help us, figure out, one, what do we want and what would be helpful, and two, how can we get the companies to listen to us to address that.
Yeah, and I think it's going to help both men and women to have these conversations. That family unit it's definitely why people work in this industry and others to do the job to provide for their family and to better our communities in general. So having these conversations, in my opinion, is just going to better the workforce as a whole. So I do love having the element of women and bringing the community of women together, because there's not a lot of us out there. And so it makes sense. And we still need that community. So I guess, will you tell me a little bit about the communities that you know of that women can get involved in?
Sure. So a group that I'm involved with is Women in Mining, and they're growing group, and so there'll be a conference coming up in October, which is actually when you're having yours
Yes.
in Chicago. So I'll be missing it. But they have sort of localized chapter meetings also, and so virtually or in person. And it's sort of an emerging group that they're really working on trying to address issues in the workplace and promote inclusivity and diversity within our industry. And so that's one really good one. There's also something called the Women's Mining Coalition. That's a bit more political, but again, a great group. Obviously, this is not women exclusive. There are men that could be part of these. And I think that that's also really great. I think that just being mindful that it takes all of us to do this is key, right? And so being able to collaborate, work together, solve problems, come up with ideas. That's sort of what these are all stemming from. And so those are the two that I think are the foremost in my mind. But I also think that within chapters, so like the SME, they also have some young leaders groups, and they have quite a number of women involved in those. And so I think women are really trying to take the lead in a lot of these circumstances and become involved so that they can create change.
Yeah, and some of the challenges, we've been feeling them a long time. So the pandemic really highlights how, women do take the brunt of a lot of these challenges that we've had recently, which is a hard statistic to look at in that. But we want to make sure, we're getting back to work and we're looking at how to improve some of these processes moving forward. And I do believe that's part of building community and making sure that we have the conversation to start. I was curious if there's anything else, just as we're talking, that you wanted to share.
There's probably so many things. I agree with you so much that we have to approach this from an area where we create dialogue. And I think that there has to be mutual respect and consideration from everybody in this, because it is a family scenario that we're looking at. And when we're talking about our livelihoods and creating for our family and figuring out a balance really between work and life and, spouses and family dynamics, figuring out how and why you work and what motivates everybody is really key. So that doesn't happen without having a dialogue and sometimes just talking and thinking out loud to realize where everybody is at. And if we don't do that, we sort of stay in the same status quo and assume that everything is working just fine. So challenging that a little bit and having these open conversations, I think, is really the most important part of what we do.
Yeah, and for our managers out there to create a space so that people do feel safe to share the challenges that they have. We've talked a lot about psych safety, and I think that this is part of that. And really, in order to create change, there are some hard conversations. But when you bring your real self to the table, then we can actually know what the real problem is and solve it, right? Like instead of kind of, talking to your colleagues, maybe instead of, bringing it up to management to
Sure.
create change.
No, and that's a really good point. And I mean, right off the bat, when you said, what helps establish trust, and I think authenticity, right? And so being able to be expressive about what's important to you and live those values and have that integrity, you can't do that in a space where you don't feel safe, right? And so yes, site safety is important, but also the ability to express yourself to management, have them be receptive, listen, and potentially help you create change. You can't do that when you don't feel safe. So you can have these kinds of conversations in groups like we're doing, but you do have to create sort of and foster the ability to have this dialogue internal to your organization as well.
Yeah, I had one more thought that I wanted to just touch on. We talked about how you're going outside of the traditional mining industry to bring in these new technologies. And I see that across industry, right? As we're moving towards this more connected plant or field, I guess, in this case. But, these technologies are essential to having a more sustainable workforce or mine, et cetera. And I just wanted to know, like, are you seeing that? Are you seeing them more, I can't think of the word right now, but just willing to bring in outside industries to kind of solve that? Or is it something that we're going to really have to work on?
I think we really have to work on it. I think that we are seeing it a little bit, but not nearly as much as I anticipate we will have to, just to bridge some of the gaps between our exiting senior members and sort of the ones coming in. And just that middle population, the doers, as I call them, everybody that's in the field and between entry level and senior management, they're the ones making this work, right? And so there aren't enough of them to go around. And even if they've gone outside of the industry, we've been really exclusionary in mining for such a long time. It's like, oh, they're in coal, they can't do gold. It's like we're all smart. And you can absolutely figure out creative ways of providing some training, providing some mentoring, creating some knowledge transfer so that we can utilize individuals that may have been in a different portion of mining or who are coming completely from outside mining. They may have some fresh perspectives, ideas, thoughts that would be beneficial for us, and we need those really badly. And so I'm absolutely an advocate for that. And I have some clients that are more receptive to it than others. And I think I'm seeing that happen more and more just because they're recognizing, we call it the purple squirrel or the unicorn. And it's like, this is the impossible, the needle in the haystack, essentially. That's what I'm hired to find all the time. And so I anticipate that my searches will be difficult, and that's why I'm being paid to do them. But we have to be realistic, and we have a pretty good barometer of the market and what's out there for the most part. And I can say, some of these people, just with all of the criteria that some companies are looking for, truly don't exist. So we have to be willing to train them into the roles, or we need to be willing to look outside the industry and give them some training on mining. And it's not insurmountable. So we just have to be open to it. But again, going back, some of my clients are quite receptive to it, and others still have an idea that they can just find what they want because they are who they are. And so we'll see how that works.
Yeah, I think training is so important. And all these, we used to do the apprentice programs, and I'd like to see that come back a little bit more to the forefront. But training, definitely, once you have somebody there, I think it's just a natural that we need to have a focus on that, especially with all these 5 generations trying to work together. Having that process of knowing who is the best trainer for the one coming in is definitely something to look at.
No, it's interesting that you mentioned that, right? So we have a really diverse group of people that are working presently. So all the way from baby boomers to Gen Z. And so we're canvassing a huge generational scope, and everybody is coming to it with different strengths and weaknesses. And like you said, figuring out who will train them best into these, creating mentor relationships. It is, I mean, to me, it's fascinating. I love reading about it and talking about it and seeing it come into practice. But it is a bit of a challenge to figure out what you have and who will do it. And I have to say that some of what I've been really disappointed about, in seeing when we bring somebody to the table at an entry level and having the next tier say, we don't have time to train them. Like, we need somebody else at a different level. And it's like the thing that I love about our industry at a more senior level, I would say, is their passion for it. And like I said at the beginning, their enthusiasm, their sort of dedication to it. I think that they'll provide the best mentorships at this point because that enthusiasm will trickle down. And that has to be part of it to keep people in our industry and to train them further on. And so, I think that we have to have those elders, for lack of a better word, in our industry who have that enthusiasm for it, spread it around. And so it's sort of like spreading sunshine and getting everybody else excited about it. And they've lived through so much. They've got great stories. They've traveled all over the place. It's great fun. And so getting that, into every other generation that we have working, I think is part of what we have to do. And that's a storytelling part.
Yes.
And
you read my mind right then. I was like,
we've lost that a little bit, I think, as we get younger and they haven't had those experiences. And so they don't understand the value of that storytelling part. But to me, I think that that's a really interesting component.
Yeah. And, we also expect entry level people to have experience. And that's a really difficult challenge too. You get the resume in and they, have, went to college or whatever and maybe had very little experience. Yeah. And I think that's a challenge coming into for the young professionals as well.
It's huge. And I feel for them. And I've talked a lot to kids in school at bachelor's level and master's level, and I call them kids. I guess they're adults and they're professionals and looking to break in. They also don't always have that opportunity, right? Because we haven't had these apprentice programs. We've cut back on internships, or we have a very limited number of them, and so those without the connections or family members within the industry sometimes have a really difficult time breaking into it. And again, I don't have all the answers, but I do have some really cool clients. And I think that our mining professionals who are acting as professors within technical colleges or mining schools also have some really great ideas in how we can incorporate them at an earlier stage. And so I'm encouraged by that, but I had a school come to me recently and say, hey, there's a mine right here. One of our individuals that runs this department worked within mining. This would be a great area for them in terms of electrical instrumentation, all these areas, even mechanical. And we can train them. Tell us what the mine wants. How do we figure that out? How can we create a program that can feed them? And then so we went to the mine and said, hey, would you have any interest? And they said, absolutely. So we're kind of trying to create a dialogue earlier so that schools can be responsive to what they need and crank these people out at a very early stage that could be utilized and be responsive to what the mines are asking for. So I think we can use this model in a lot of different circumstances, but it takes that collaboration. But I'm really encouraged by it.
Yeah, that makes me so happy to hear. And, that they do have a resource, and it is about reaching out and, taking that initiative, which if somebody does want to reach out to you, since you know all of these people and you are in, executive recruiting, and they're interested in it, how should they best connect with you?
Sure. For me, I really love connecting with all kinds of people, learning about their backgrounds. Our website is a great first start. And so that'll give sort of an orientation for candidates or for clients in terms of what we do and our history. And our website's miningsearch.com. So really easy. And on there, you can connect with me directly. And so there's a connect page, and it'll just allow you to send me an email. At that point, we can connect by phone or video conference or whatever. And so at this point, I'm used to it all. Everybody has a little different preference. I have Zoomed and Skyped and Microsoft Teams and done all the things this past year. And so it's really nice in lieu of having in-person conferences where that was a traditional place where I got to meet a lot of people. So I would start it on our website.
Well, I'm so excited to be able to share you with all of our audience. And I look forward to getting to meet you. Maybe not this October, but it'll happen, and just see kind of what you do next. Look forward to connecting with the women in mining and making sure that, we support them. We like to be collaborative around here and empowering. So thank you so much, Lindsay, for being here with me today. Just a pleasure to have met you.
It was a pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, Charli, and I look forward to visiting with you in person, I hope soon as well. And good luck at your conference. I'm sorry I can't make it, but I'll be thinking of you.
Thank you. And we'll have some time virtually after that so you can see some of it. Okay.
Absolutely.
See you soon.
Thank you so much.
And we're back here in Alabama. Roll Tide. All of us here together. But wonderful interview. Thank you, Lindsay, for coming on the show. Thank you, Charli, for finding her. I haven't heard, I feel like this year you've introduced me into the mining community. And for that, I'm thankful. And I'm always glad to hear more and more from people in other different parts of the industry. And I'm always excited to share them with our listeners as well. So let us know what you thought.
Yeah, I love the mining industry. There's so much. And when we talk about sustainability, we're really going to have to learn a lot in that area and pay attention. So this brings us to the end of the show. Well, thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes, do us a favor, subscribe, rate and review the podcast, leave us a comment, all of those things that helps other listeners find the show so we can just grow this community even more.
And we're back next Monday for our 100th episode.
So excited.
I know. So until then.
Wait. Oh. Say it again. So until then,
be empowering.
Sorry. I wasn't ready.
Oh, because the music. I can hear the music.
I don't have my